The Galactic Council chamber was quiet. Ambassador Crixvel stood before the assembled representatives of 47 species. His gray skin was pale, which meant he was nervous. His 3 eyes blinked in different patterns, which meant he was trying to find the right words. "I am here to formally request," Crixvel said slowly, "that the Velanthe Empire bans all civilian travel to Earth." The chamber erupted in noise. Clicks, whistles, and growls filled the air. The Velanthe Empire had been visiting Earth for 3 standard years. They were the first alien civilization to make contact with humans. The relationship had been mostly peaceful. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges happened. Humans were considered a young species, not very advanced but curious and friendly. So why would Ambassador Crixvel want to ban travel? High Chancellor Moreth raised one of her forearms to silence the room. She was an Arxian, tall and thin with purple scales that shimmered under the chamber lights. "Ambassador Crixvel," she said in a calm voice, "this is a serious request. You must explain your reasons." Crixvel took a deep breath. His species did not have lungs like humans, but they had developed the habit after watching human diplomats. 3 weeks ago, he began, a group of Velanthe tourists visited a human establishment called a bar. It was in a city named San Diego, in a region called California. "We know of these drinking establishments," Chancellor Moreth said. "They are common in human culture." "Yes," Crixvel agreed. The tourists wanted to experience human nightlife. They had been told it was exciting. What they did not know was that this particular bar was frequented by a group of humans known as Marines. A murmur went through the chamber. Most species had learned about human military divisions by now. The Marines were known as fierce warriors, but also as loud and unpredictable when consuming alcohol. "What happened?" Chancellor Moreth asked. Crixvel activated the holographic display in front of him. Images appeared in the air. They showed the inside of a bar. Humans were everywhere, holding glass containers filled with various liquids. In one corner, a group of Velanthe tourists stood awkwardly. They were clearly uncomfortable. "At first the Marines were friendly," Crixvel explained. "They bought our citizens drinks. They asked questions about our home world. One Marine, a female with red hair, insisted on teaching our citizens a human activity called arm wrestling." "I have heard of this," said Representative Gornak of the Thrix Collective. "It is a test of physical strength using the upper appendage." "Correct," Crixvel said. "Our citizens declined at first. Velanthe are not known for physical strength. We are a species of scientists and merchants, but the Marines were persistent. They said it would be fun." The holographic display showed a Velanthe citizen sitting across from a large human male. The human had thick arms covered in colorful markings that Crixvel had learned were called tattoos. The Velanthe looked terrified. "The contest lasted less than 1 second," Crixvel continued. "Our citizen's arm was forced to the table with such violence that he suffered a minor fracture." Gasps filled the chamber. "The Marines felt terrible," Crixvel added quickly. "They did not mean to cause harm. They immediately called for medical assistance. They paid for all treatment. They even sent flowers to our citizens' recovery room." "Then why the travel ban?" Chancellor Moreth asked. Crixvel's 3 eyes all focused on the Chancellor, because that was only the beginning of the evening. He advanced the holographic display. The images now showed chaos. Tables were overturned. Chairs were flying through the air. Humans were wrestling each other on the ground. One Marine was swinging from a light fixture while shouting words that Crixvel's translator could not properly interpret. "A fight broke out," Crixvel explained. "Not between our citizens and the Marines. Between the Marines and another group of human military personnel called the Army." "They fight each other?" Representative Gornak asked in confusion. "Apparently this is common," Crixvel said. "The Marines and the Army have what humans call a rivalry. They compete in everything. sports, drinking, even combat. But they serve the same government, Chancellor Morath observed. Yes, they do. It makes no sense to us either. The holographic display continued showing the destruction. Glass shattered. A table broke in half when two humans crashed through it. One human picked up another human and threw him into a wall. The wall cracked. Our citizens fled the establishment, Crixvell said. They thought they had escaped danger. They were wrong. The images changed to show the street outside the bar. The fight had spilled onto the sidewalk. More humans had joined from nearby establishments. Some were throwing punches. Others were throwing each other. One human was using a street sign as a weapon. How long did this continue? Chancellor Morath asked. 3 hours, Crixvell answered, until the human authorities arrived with vehicles called police cars. Even then, it took 40 human officers to restore order. The chamber was silent. Every representative was staring at the holographic display in disbelief. Were your citizens harmed during this larger conflict? Chancellor Morath finally asked. Not directly, Crixvell admitted. But one of the Marines noticed them hiding behind a vehicle. He ran over to them, grabbed them, and carried them to safety. He was bleeding from multiple wounds, but he refused to let go of our citizens until they were far from the fighting. That sounds like protective behavior, Representative Gornak said. It was, Crixvell agreed. The Marine kept saying, "I got you little dudes. Nobody hurts our alien friends." He then returned to the fight. I do not understand, Chancellor Morath said slowly. The Marines caused injury to your citizen but also protected your citizens. They destroyed property but also showed concern for alien well-being. How do we interpret this? Crixvell sighed. It was another human habit he had adopted. This is exactly the problem, Chancellor. We cannot predict human behavior. They are simultaneously dangerous and protective. They fight each other for entertainment but will unite instantly against any outside threat. They damage their own bodies with alcohol and then perform acts of incredible heroism. The Galactic Council took a short recess after Ambassador Crixvell's testimony. Representatives gathered in small groups to discuss what they had heard. The holographic images of the bar fight were still floating in the air, frozen at the moment when a Marine had thrown a table through a window. Chancellor Morath approached Ambassador Crixvell privately. Her purple scales had darkened slightly, which indicated deep thought in her species. Ambassador, she said quietly, I sense there is more to your request than one bar incident. Crixvell nodded. You are correct, Chancellor. The bar incident was only what prompted me to finally make this formal request, but there have been many other incidents over the past 3 years. Tell me. Crixvell pulled out a small data pad. Where do I begin? 6 months ago, a Velanthi research team visited a human sporting event called football. They wanted to understand human competitive rituals. Football, Chancellor Morath repeated. I have read reports about this. Humans chase an oval object and attempt to carry it to designated zones. Yes, the research team was seated in an area reserved for fans of one particular team. They did not understand that wearing the wrong colors in this area was dangerous. Dangerous over colors. Humans are very passionate about their sporting teams, Crixvell explained. When our researchers accidentally cheered for the opposing team, the surrounding humans became hostile. There was shouting. Objects were thrown. One of our researchers was hit with a container of yellow liquid that humans call beer. Chancellor Morath's scales rippled with concern. Was anyone seriously hurt? No, a large human male intervened. He stood up and announced to everyone that the aliens were his guests, and that anyone who touched them would answer to him. He used several words that my translator flagged as extremely offensive, but the effect was immediate. The other humans apologized and even bought our researchers food. So once again, humans were both the threat and the protection. Exactly. The recess ended, and the council reconvened. Chancellor Morath asked Ambassador Crixvell to share more incidents with the full assembly. 8 months ago, Crixvell began, a Velanthe diplomat was visiting a human city called New York. She was walking through an area called Central Park when she encountered a large animal. The humans call them dogs. Several representatives nodded. Dogs had become famous throughout the galaxy. They were one of the few Earth species that seemed genuinely happy to meet aliens. The dog was friendly, Crixvell continued. It wanted to play, but our diplomat did not understand this. She panicked and tried to run. This excited the dog further. It chased her. Was she harmed? Asked Representative Yilix of the Orion Syndicate. She fell into a pond while fleeing. She cannot swim. The water was not deep by human standards, but for our species, it was dangerous. The holographic display activated again. It showed a Velanthe splashing desperately in murky green water. A large golden dog was running along the edge of the pond, barking loudly. What happened next? Chancellor Morath asked. A human jumped into the water immediately. He was an elderly male, perhaps 70 years by human measurement. He swam to our diplomat and pulled her to shore. He then performed a technique called CPR, which forced water from her breathing organs. He saved her life, Representative Yilix observed. Yes, but here is the strange part. When our diplomat recovered, she learned that the elderly human could not swim well either. He had jumped into the water without thinking, driven purely by instinct to help a stranger. He risked his own life, Chancellor Morath said. He did, and when our diplomat thanked him, he simply said, "You looked like you needed help," as if risking death was a normal response to a stranger in trouble. The chamber was quiet again. Ambassador Crixvell scrolled through his data pad. "I have hundreds of similar reports," he said. "Humans who started fights but then protected aliens caught in the crossfire. Humans who consumed dangerous amounts of alcohol but then sobered up instantly when aliens needed assistance. Humans who argued violently with each other but united immediately when they perceived a threat to their alien visitors. This is the nature of humans," Chancellor Morath said thoughtfully. "They are chaotic but loyal, dangerous but protective." "Yes," Crixvell agreed. "And this is exactly why I am requesting the travel ban. Not because humans are evil, but because they are unpredictable. Our citizens do not understand human behavior. They cannot anticipate when a situation will become dangerous or when a human will suddenly become their greatest ally." Representative Gornak raised a tentacle to speak. "I would like to hear testimony from a human before we make any decisions." The council murmured in agreement. "There is a human representative waiting outside," Chancellor Morath announced. "Her name is Colonel Sarah Chen. She is a member of the human military organization known as the United States Marine Corps." Ambassador Crixvell's 3 eyes widened. "A Marine? You invited a Marine to testify. Is there a problem with this?" "No, Chancellor, I just did not expect that." The chamber doors opened. Colonel Sarah Chen walked in. She was not what many aliens expected when they thought of Marines. She was of average height for a human female, with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to notice everything at once. She wore a formal uniform covered in colorful ribbons and metal symbols that indicated her rank and achievements. She walked to the center of the chamber and stood at attention, a posture that somehow managed to be both respectful and confident. "Honorable Chancellor, distinguished representatives," she said. Her voice was clear and calm. "I am Colonel Sarah Chen of the United States Marine Corps. I understand there are concerns about the behavior of Marines toward alien visitors." "There are," Chancellor Morath confirmed. "Ambassador Crixvell has presented evidence of multiple incidents where Marines have endangered alien citizens." Colonel Chen nodded. "I have reviewed the incidents. I want to start by apologizing on behalf of the Marine Corps for any harm caused to Velanthe citizens. That was never our intention. Intention is difficult to measure, Ambassador Crixvell said. Results are easier. Fair point, Colonel Chen agreed. May I share some context that might help the Council understand Marine behavior? Chancellor Morath gestured for her to continue. Marines are trained to fight, Colonel Chen began. This is obvious. What is less obvious is why we fight. We do not fight for territory or resources or glory. We fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. She paused to let this sink in. When Marines meet aliens, something interesting happens. Our protective instincts activate. We see beings who are far from home, who do not understand our customs, who might be in danger. Our training tells us to protect them. But your training also tells you to fight, Representative Gornak observed. Yes, and this is where things get complicated. Colonel Chen smiled slightly. Marines are intense. We do everything at full power. When we drink hard. When we fight hard. When we protect with everything we have. This intensity is what concerns us, Ambassador Crixvell said. Your species operates at extremes that other species find overwhelming. I understand, Colonel Chen said, and I want to tell you about a concept we have in the Marines. We call it controlled aggression. It means we channel our intensity toward specific targets. We can switch it on and off. The bar incident suggests otherwise, Crixvell pointed out. The bar incident was Marines off duty, consuming alcohol, in the presence of their traditional rivals from the Army. Colonel Chen's expression became slightly embarrassed. I will not pretend that was our finest hour, but notice something important. Even in that chaos, the Marine who noticed your citizens stopped fighting to protect them. This is true, Crixvell admitted reluctantly. That is Marine training. The protective instinct overrides everything else. We might be drunk, we might be in the middle of a brawl, but the moment we see someone who needs protection, we switch modes. Colonel Chen's testimony continued for another hour. She explained the history of the Marine Corps, their training methods, and their code of honor. She showed videos of Marines helping civilians in disaster zones, rescuing hostages, and building schools in war-torn regions. The Council was impressed but still uncertain. Colonel Chen, Chancellor Morath finally said, your words are compelling, but they do not address the fundamental problem. Your species is unpredictable. Other species cannot anticipate your behavior. This makes interaction dangerous. With respect, Chancellor, I think the opposite is true. Colonel Chen's voice remained calm but firm. Human behavior is entirely predictable once you understand our core values. Please explain. Humans will always protect those they consider family. Humans will always fight for those they consider friends. Humans will always help those they consider guests. She paused. The key is understanding who fits into these categories. And aliens, how do humans categorize aliens? Colonel Chen smiled. Since first contact, aliens have been placed in the highest protection category. You are guests in our home. This is sacred to humans. Harming a guest is one of the worst things a human can do. Ambassador Crixvell stood up, then explained the arm wrestling incident. The Marine broke our citizen's arm. That was an accident, Colonel Chen said. The Marine genuinely did not know how fragile Valanthe bones are compared to human bones. He was trying to include your citizen in a bonding activity. When he realized he had caused harm, he was devastated. Devastated? Yes, I have spoken to that Marine personally. His name is Sergeant Williams. He has not forgiven himself for the injury. He has been learning about Valanthe physiology so he never makes that mistake again. He has requested permission to personally apologize to your citizen. Crixvell's 3 eyes blinked in surprise. He wants to apologize. He has been waiting for clearance for 3 weeks. He also prepared a gift. In human culture, we give gifts when we have wronged someone. The Council murmured at this information. Gift-giving after causing harm was a custom shared by many species. It was a sign of genuine remorse. Chancellor Moreth leaned forward. Colonel Chen, I have a direct question. If the Council decides to ban travel to Earth, how will humans respond? Colonel Chen considered the question carefully before answering. Honestly, we would be disappointed. Humans have been excited about alien contact since we first looked at the stars. We have dreamed of meeting other species for thousands of years. To be banned from interaction would hurt us deeply. But you would accept it. We would have to. We cannot force other species to visit us, but I hope the Council will consider an alternative solution. What alternative? Education, Colonel Chen said. Both ways. Teach aliens about human behavior before they visit Earth. Teach humans about alien customs and sensitivities. Create guidelines for interaction. Assign human escorts to alien visitors. Escorts, Representative Yilix asked. Yes, trained humans who understand both human and alien cultures. They would accompany alien visitors and help navigate difficult situations. They would be responsible for keeping aliens safe while also helping them understand what they are experiencing. Ambassador Crixvell looked thoughtful. This is not a terrible idea. The Marine Corps would be happy to provide these escorts, Colonel Chen added. We already have cultural training programs. We could expand them to include alien interactions. You want to assign Marines as escorts? Crixvell asked with obvious concern. Who better? Marines are trained to protect. We are trained to adapt to unfamiliar environments. We are trained to remain calm in chaos. Colonel Chen paused. And honestly, if something does go wrong, you want a Marine nearby. Because Marines cause problems. Because Marines solve problems. Colonel Chen's expression was completely serious, sometimes violently, but always effectively. The Council called another recess to discuss this proposal. During the break, Ambassador Crixvell found himself standing next to Colonel Chen near the refreshment table. Your proposal is interesting, Crixvell admitted, but I still do not fully understand human behavior. What confuses you? Everything. Crixvell's three eyes all looked at her. Why do Marines fight each other in bars but unite against external threats? Why do humans consume substances that damage their bodies? Why do you risk your lives for strangers? Colonel Chen thought about the questions. Marines fight each other to stay sharp. Combat skills need to be practiced. The Army rivalry is mostly theater. We actually respect each other deeply. And the alcohol? That is harder to explain. Humans live short lives compared to many species. We pack as much experience as possible into our years. Sometimes this includes experiences that are not healthy. And risking your lives for strangers. Colonel Chen was silent for a moment. This one is simple. We believe all conscious beings have value. When we see someone in danger, we cannot stand by and watch. It is not in our nature. But you could die. Yes, but if we let someone die when we could have helped, we would have to live with that. For humans, that is often worse than death. Crixvell considered this. This is a noble perspective. It is who we are. We are not perfect. We make mistakes. We sometimes hurt people we are trying to help, but our intentions are almost always good. Almost always. Colonel Chen's expression became serious. Humans have darkness in us too. We have committed terrible acts throughout our history. We are capable of great evil, but we are also capable of great good. The battle between these impulses defines our species. And which impulse wins? That depends on the individual and the circumstances and the support they receive. Colonel Chen looked directly at the ambassador. Having alien friends has been good for us. It has reminded us of our better nature. Banning travel would take that away. Before Crixvell could respond, an alarm began blaring throughout the council chamber. Red lights flashed. The universal emergency signal was being broadcast. Chancellor Marath's voice came over the speakers. All representatives return to the chamber immediately. There is a situation. The situation was worse than anyone expected. A ship belonging to the Kreth Dominion had entered the solar system. The Kreth were a warrior species that had been expanding their territory aggressively for decades. They had conquered 7 inhabited worlds and enslaved their populations. The Galactic Council had declared them hostile, but no species had been willing to confront them directly. The Kreth ship was massive. It dwarfed anything in the system. It was heading toward Earth. "Why are they here?" Representative Gornak asked. "Earth is not strategically valuable." "They have sent a transmission," Chancellor Marath said. Her purple scales had gone pale with fear. "They claim Earth as territory of the Kreth Dominion. All humans are to surrender immediately or face extermination." The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives from dozens of species began arguing about what to do. Some suggested fleeing. Others suggested negotiation. A few suggested letting Earth fend for itself. Colonel Chen stood calmly in the middle of the chaos. She had pulled out a communication device and was speaking rapidly in her native language. Ambassador Crixville approached her. "Colonel, what is happening?" "I am coordinating with Earth Defense Forces," she said. "The Kreth have made a mistake." "What mistake? Their ship is enormous. Human technology cannot match it." Colonel Chen smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had spotted prey. "The Kreth think they are attacking a primitive planet. They think humans will surrender easily. They are wrong." "But your weapons, your ships." "Ambassador, let me tell you something about humans. We have been at war with each other for our entire history. We have developed weapons that can destroy our own planet many times over. We have fought in every environment imaginable. We have never, not once, surrendered to an invading force without a fight. But the Kreth have conquered 7 worlds. Those worlds surrendered. They calculated the odds and decided survival was more important than freedom." Colonel Chen's eyes were hard. "Humans do not think that way. We would rather die fighting than live as slaves." Chancellor Marath had restored order to the chamber. She approached Colonel Chen and Ambassador Crixville. "Colonel, the Council has been discussing options. We believe the best course of action is negotiation. Perhaps the Kreth will accept tribute instead of full conquest." "With respect, Chancellor, Earth will not pay tribute to the Kreth. We will not negotiate. We will fight." "You will die." "Maybe, probably, but we will take as many of them with us as possible, and the next species they try to conquer will remember what Earth did. They will remember that humans fought back." The council chamber was silent. Every representative was staring at Colonel Chen. Representative Gornak spoke first. "You would sacrifice your entire species to send a message." "We would sacrifice our entire species to remain free." Colonel Chen's voice was steady. "This is not just about humans. The Kreth have been expanding because nobody stops them. Every world that surrenders makes them stronger. Every world that fights back weakens them." "But you cannot win," Chancellor Morath said. "Winning is not the only goal." Colonel Chen looked around the chamber. "How many of your worlds are next on the Kreth list? How many of your species will face this same choice? If Earth fights and loses, we become a symbol of resistance. If Earth surrenders, we become a symbol of submission." Ambassador Crixville found himself speaking. "The Valanthi are not warriors. We cannot help you fight." "I am not asking for help," Colonel Chen said. "I am asking you to watch. See how humans respond to threats. See what happens when you back us into a corner." The holographic display activated, showing the Kreth ship approaching Earth. It also showed something else. Hundreds of smaller contacts were rising from Earth's surface. "What are those?" Chancellor Morath asked. "Those are our response," Colonel Chen said. "Every nation on Earth is launching everything we have. Fighter jets, missiles, orbital defense platforms. Ships that were supposed to be decommissioned are being activated. This is madness, Representative Yilix whispered. No, Colonel Chen said, this is humanity. The Kreth ship began firing. Bright energy beams lanced through space. Several human ships exploded, but more kept coming. The sky over Earth was filling with human vessels. They are dying, Ambassador Crixvell said softly. They are fighting, Colonel Chen corrected. Every pilot up there volunteered. They know the odds. They went anyway. The holographic display showed human ships swarming around the Kreth vessel. Most were destroyed, but some got through. Missiles impacted the Kreth shields. Explosions rippled across the massive hull. They are damaging it, Chancellor Morath observed with surprise. We are not as primitive as we look, Colonel Chen said. Humans have been preparing for this moment our entire existence. We just did not know who the enemy would be. More human ships fell, but more rose to take their place. The Kreth ship was being hit continuously now. Its shields were flickering. This should not be possible, Representative Gornak said. Their technology is generations ahead of yours. Technology is not everything, Colonel Chen said. Will matters, determination matters, the willingness to sacrifice matters. As if to prove her point, the holographic display showed something remarkable. A human ship, badly damaged and trailing fire, was accelerating toward the Kreth vessel. It was not attacking, it was ramming. What is that pilot doing? Ambassador Crixvell asked. His weapons are probably destroyed, Colonel Chen said quietly. His ship is the only weapon he has left. He is using it. The damaged human ship struck the Kreth vessel at full speed. The explosion was massive. A section of the Kreth ship broke apart. The council chamber was completely silent. Another damaged human ship followed the same path, then another, then another. They are committing suicide, Representative Yilix said in horror. They are giving everything they have, Colonel Chen said. There were tears in her eyes, but her voice remained steady. This is what humans do when we cannot win. We make the enemy pay such a terrible price that they never want to fight us again. The battle lasted for 3 hours. By the end, the Kreth ship was a burning wreck drifting in space. It had been brought down not by superior technology, but by sheer human stubbornness. Thousands of human pilots had given their lives. Their damaged ships had become weapons. Their bodies had become shields. The Kreth had never experienced anything like it. When the surviving Kreth transmitted a message requesting permission to retreat, the council was stunned. The Kreth had never retreated before. They had never asked permission for anything. Colonel Chen picked up a communication device. This is Colonel Sarah Chen of the United States Marine Corps. You may retreat, but know this, if you ever return to this system, there will be no retreat. There will be no surrender. There will only be death. The Kreth ship limped away at maximum speed. Reports came in that they had abandoned their planned attacks on 3 other systems. Word of what happened at Earth had spread. The council chamber was quiet for a long time after the battle ended. Representatives sat in their seats, trying to process what they had witnessed. Chancellor Morath finally spoke. I believe we need to reconsider the travel ban. Ambassador Crixvell stood slowly. His 3 eyes were still fixed on the holographic display showing the wreckage of the Kreth ship. I withdraw my request, he said. I was wrong. Wrong about what? Colonel Chen asked. About humans, about Marines. Crixvell turned to face her. I thought your unpredictability was a weakness. I thought your intensity was a flaw. I was wrong. These are your greatest strengths. We are still dangerous, Colonel Chen admitted. Yes, but you are our kind of dangerous. Crixvell's 3 eyes all focused on her. You are dangerous to those who threaten the innocent. You are dangerous to those who would conquer and enslave. You are dangerous to the Kreth. The Velanthi formally request an alliance with Earth, he continued. Not just trade agreements, not just cultural exchange, a full military alliance. The chamber erupted in noise. This was unprecedented. The Valanthi had never formed military alliances with anyone. "Why?" Chancellor Morith asked. "Because I want humans standing between my people and our enemies," Crixvel said simply. "I want the Kreth to know that attacking the Valanthi means fighting the humans. I want the entire galaxy to know this." Representative Gornak raised a tentacle. The Thrix Collective would also like to discuss an alliance. "The Orion Syndicate as well," Representative Yilix added. One by one, representatives from across the galaxy expressed interest in alliances with Earth. The species that had once considered humans too dangerous to visit now wanted humans as allies. Colonel Chen watched this with a mixture of pride and sadness. "We lost a lot of good people today," she said quietly. "They deserve to be remembered." "They will be," Chancellor Moreth said. "The Council will erect a memorial in the Central Plaza. The pilots who gave their lives to stop the Kreth will be honored throughout the galaxy." "Thank you, Chancellor." The formal proceedings concluded several hours later. Trade agreements were renegotiated. Military alliances were drafted. Travel restrictions were not only lifted but reversed. The Council now recommended that every species send observers to Earth to learn about human culture and military tactics. Ambassador Crixvel found Colonel Chen on the observation deck after the session ended. She was staring out at the stars, her expression thoughtful. "Colonel, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "During the battle, when your pilots were ramming the Kreth ship, what were they thinking?" Colonel Chen was quiet for a moment. They were thinking about who they were protecting, their families, their friends, their planet. They were thinking about the Valanthi tourist whose arm was broken by a Marine who just wanted to play. They were thinking about all the alien visitors who came to Earth hopping to find friends. They died for aliens they never met. They died for everyone. That is what Marines do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. It does not matter if they are human or alien. It does not matter if we have met them or not. They are under our protection. Crixvel felt something he had never felt before. It took him a moment to identify the emotion. It was gratitude. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I came to the Council asking for a travel ban. I said humans were too dangerous to visit. I was thinking only of the small dangers, the bar fights and the accidents. I did not see the larger picture." "What do you see now?" "I see a species that is dangerous in the way fire is dangerous. Fire can burn you if you are careless, but fire also keeps you warm in the cold. Fire cooks your food. Fire lights your way through darkness." He paused. "Humans are fire. You can hurt us if we are not careful, but you can also save us from things much worse than burns." Colonel Chen smiled. "That is possibly the nicest thing anyone has ever said about humanity." "It is the truth, and I will make sure every Valanthi knows it." Crixvel extended one of his thin arms. He had learned that humans shook hands as a sign of respect. "Friends." Colonel Chen took his hand gently. She had learned how fragile Valanthi bones were. "Friends." The news of the battle spread across the galaxy within days. The Kreth had been stopped. A primitive species from a small planet in an unremarkable solar system had done what no one else could do. They had fought back. More importantly, they had won. The Kreth Dominion issued a formal declaration. Earth was placed on their forbidden list. No Kreth ship would ever enter the Sol system again. The humans were too crazy, too stubborn, too willing to die. They were not worth the cost. Other aggressive species took note. The Vorathi raiders canceled plans to attack human colonies. The Nexus hegemony decided to seek trade agreements instead of conquest. The Burning Fleet, which had been expanding toward Earth space, changed direction entirely. Humanity had earned a reputation. They were the crazy ones. The ones who would fight against impossible odds. The ones who would crash their own ships into enemy vessels rather than surrender. It was the best protection any species could have. On Earth, a memorial was built. It listed the names of every pilot who died in the battle. At its center stood a statue of a Marine in full combat gear, holding a weapon in one hand and an alien child in the other. The inscription read, "We protect those who cannot protect themselves." Sergeant Williams, the Marine who had accidentally broken the Velanthe tourist's arm, finally got his chance to apologize. He traveled to the Velanthe homeworld with a delegation of Marines. He brought gifts for the tourist he had injured. He brought flowers and what humans called chocolate. The Velanthe citizen was surprised to see him, even more surprised when the large human dropped to one knee and apologized with tears in his eyes. "I am so sorry," Sergeant Williams said. "I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted you to have fun." The Velanthe citizen looked at this massive human warrior, kneeling before him, crying over an accidental injury. He had heard about the battle. He knew that humans like this one had died to protect his planet. "I forgive you," the Velanthe said. "Will you teach me how to arm wrestle properly?" Sergeant Williams laughed through his tears. "Yeah, buddy, but this time we will use a cushion for your arm." The Galactic Council never did ban travel to Earth. Instead, they established Earth as the headquarters for a new alliance that would eventually include over 100 species. Humans became the protectors of the galaxy, not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they were the most determined. And because they were the only species crazy enough to fight when they could not win. The Marines, for their part, continued being Marines. They still got drunk in bars. They still fought with the Army. They still accidentally injured alien visitors who did not understand how strong humans were. But now, when aliens visited Earth, they were not afraid. They knew that the same Marines who caused trouble on Saturday night would give their lives to protect them on Sunday morning. That was the true Marine incident, not the bar fight, not the broken arm, not even the battle with the Kreth. The true Marine incident was the moment the galaxy learned what humanity really was. Dangerous, chaotic, unpredictable, and worth having as friends.